Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today we have a slightly different episode again, in that usually the projects that we're focusing on have their own proprietary hardware, whereas today's project, Hivello, is more, I think of it more as an aggregator of DePIN projects. So one interface, one application you download, and you get instant access to mining multiple DePIN projects. So we'll get into that in a minute. We're joined today by Dom Carosa, who is co-founder and chairman of Hivello. Dom, welcome to the channel.
Thanks for having me, Leo.
Awesome. Excited to dive into her. Am I pronouncing it right? Is it Hivello or Hivello?
It depends what part of the world you're in. I'm an Aussie. I call it Hivello, but I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, it's spelt the same way, whichever way you say it.
Okay, Hivello. We'll call it Hivello then. So Hivello, just to introduce the idea, let's say somebody has never heard of Hivello before. What can they expect to take away from our discussion today?
Yeah, and maybe in order to describe Hivello, maybe I'll take a step back and just describe DePIN. And I know you've covered DePIN across your audience, but just to really try and paint the picture, there are DePINs, and for those that don't know, stands for decentralized physical infrastructure networks, and there are DePINs that require dedicated hardware like HiveMapper, like Helium, and there are other DePINs out there that can work on standard desktops and laptops. Digital resource DePINs is really the subcategory. And some of those DePINs could be storage DePINs like Storage and SIA, which basically allows you to share your computer resources, or Sentinel or Mysterium, which is a decentralized VPN, or Render or Akash, which is all about training AI models using your GPU or your graphics card. And so what Hivello does is basically aggregate all of these DePINs into a Web 2.0 environment, basically allowing both crypto natives as well as Web 2.0 users to be able to share their computer resources and get paid for them with literally a point and click approach. It's like sharing your house or your bedroom in exchange for cash on Airbnb. So it's the same kind of philosophy. We really wanted to go down the software route, allowing people to BYO, bring their own hardware, and effectively allow them to monetize all the hardware that's out there.
Okay, amazing. So I love the idea of getting access to multiple DePINs and multiple DePIN minings just from one device. So that's awesome. And before we go into that a little bit more, I'd love to just hear a bit of the backstory. So what led you and your co-founders to this idea?
So going back to, let's call it the mid-90s, I was a nerd from way back, launched a number of companies, both Web 2 and tech orientated. Got into crypto in 2013, launched a couple of companies. One of the recent and most notable ones was a company called Banksa. Banksa is one of the leading fiat on and off ramps, effectively connecting the fiat world with the digital asset world. Built that up, and last year, after 10 years, I stepped aside as chairman to focus my attention on Hivello, because I really saw the decentralization of infrastructure as really the next big opportunity in the space. And I guess the first foray in this sort of world was Helium. Actually started deploying Helium miners, and started when I think the Helium price was maybe $10, and it went up to $50, and it went down to $10, and then went obviously down a couple. And we kind of learned a couple of things. One is we didn't really want to be in the hardware game. Secondly, just trying to mine one DePIN at a time in order to be able to make ROI can be challenging. And so going back to our roots has always been software orientated. Our view was, let's build a platform that brings together all of these DePINs, because there's maybe a couple of hundred DePINs that can work on desktops and laptops today. Over the next 5 years, there's going to be thousands and thousands of them. So how are you as a consumer going to work out with my computer, what's the best DePIN for me to run, or DePINs for me to run, in order to maximize that ROI? And the reason this is going to be, I think, really important as we grow the business is you can only get so much data on chain. And so we're going to be able to effectively, by running multiple nodes across the world, we're going to be able to generate primary data, so we can tell that this DePIN, let's call it Sentinel, or Mysterium is best in Australia, Singapore, the UK, and parts of Asia, while Sentinel's best in these other countries, just based upon primary data. So they're really some of the reasons that we sort of was the genesis of Hivello, and ultimately, my view is putting the control back into the hands of the people. More people who have got a computer that mine crypto, the more people actually get exposed to the virtues of this whole sort of Bitcoin blockchain environment, which I guess is why you're here today. Power back to the people and giving them their control of their money.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, you touched on it then, sort of the difficulties of single currency or single project mining. I think that's the way the industry is going. We've seen, obviously, GeoDnet and Wingbit's partnership recently. We've seen Source tagging onto the Helium hardware, so users can dual mine. So I think it makes a ton of sense. I think the industry's heading that direction. So you mentioned that you're going to get a lot of data which other people may not potentially get. And so one project, as you phrased it, might be better off in Australia or in the UK, and a different project might be better in a different geography. What do you mean by better? And who's that data going to be going to? Is that the project itself?
Yeah, I'll clarify that. So not all DePINs are equal in the same country. So if you and I, I'm based in the Netherlands, you're based in the UK, and just say, for example, we had exactly the same hardware, exactly the same internet connection, we could be running exactly the same DePINs and get a different payout. And you may ask, well, why is that the case? So for example, if you just take decentralized VPN or storage or a CDN, a content distribution network, because there will be a different demand for VPNs or IPs in the Netherlands as compared to the UK, it means that there'll be a different payout rate for me as the individual who is running that in the Netherlands or in Australia or in the UK. And in terms of that data, so part of the data and what we're building is basically going to allow, we will effectively, as we build out the network, and I can talk about where we're up to right now, we will run multiple DePINs across all of these countries. And then based upon that data, we will know that Sentinel, for example, is the best DePIN to run in these countries for maximum ROI, i.e. payout rates, while Mysterium is best run in these particular countries. And this is data that is not actually available online. And that's really, I guess, part of the secret sauce around Hivello on why I believe it's going to make the system, as we continue growing, more valuable, and then letting AI take all that data in our data cube and then determine, okay, for Leo, these are the best 6 to 8 DePINs to maximize the ROI.
Amazing. So it's very much user or miner focused. So me, based in the UK, based on the equipment I have, you'll be able to tell me exactly what the most profitable DePINs for me to mine will be. I love that idea. And as you said, I don't think anyone else is really going to have that aggregated data. So really smart. I like it a lot. And could you perhaps touch upon, I guess, some of the projects that are available to mine right now and some of the progress that Hivello's had to date?
Yeah, so we have just gone public beta only a couple of days ago, now available across Mac, Linux, and Windows. And I'll come back to the Linux point in a moment. And we've gone live with 4 DePINs, Mysterium, AOS, LivePeer, and so we're, and Filecoin Station as well. I guess the whole premise, around what we're really trying to do, that was really phase 1. Get the product out there, get it up and running with a number of DePINs just to effectively test the concept. It works, the back-end pipes work, and now we're really focused on adding, the top 50 DePINs. We've got a small team internally who are just testing day in, day out, running multiple DePINs, trying to work out, what are the best ones for us to run. And ultimately, our view is we're going to integrate the top 50 to 100 DePINs over the next 6 months, and then let the data determine what are the best DePINs to run across each of the machines. And so coming back to the point I made about Linux, so obviously Windows and Mac, pretty simple. People have got a spare desktop or laptop. But what we know is there are an increasing number of devices, Helium devices, Hive mappers, and all these other devices. Most of those are running a Raspberry Pi, a little mini computer, which actually runs Linux. So the whole premise around us releasing a Linux version is that we can not only appeal to the Windows and Mac users out there, we can also appeal to those people that are running Helium, for example, allowing them to install Hivello. Because if you're a Helium owner right now, you're maybe earning $2, $3, $4 a month on a $300 or $500 device. By installing Hivello, you'll be able to double or triple your earnings with the same bit of hardware. And the way and how that works is Helium only uses a small percentage of your CPU. It uses almost no memory, only a very little bit of bandwidth. So we can run other DePINs that effectively use your CPU, use your memory, or if you put in a storage card, use your storage. So it's actually complementary. It doesn't negate Helium because each DePIN uses a certain type, certain resource on each of the computers. And so, that's kind of our view and our thinking moving forward.
Amazing. So in theory, there's a world in the future in which I could have a rack V2 miner, which is mining Helium, sourceful, and also has Hivello running on it as well.
Which would then be running multiple other DePINs that are complementary and don't affect the DePINs that are already on there. The big learning, just going back to when I got involved in DePIN, before it was actually called DePIN, the key learning is we need to be running multiple DePINs at the same time in order to really make ROI. And I say that in the context of a mature marketplace. As opposed to new DePINs coming on board and paying over the odds just to get the first batch of customers, which is what you do to cold start a DePIN in terms of getting it out there. But I guess on a more mature basis, definitely need to be running multiple DePINs at the same time.
100%. That long-term view is an important one as well. And so, if you were to summarize the main achievements that you guys have reached up until now, what would they be?
Getting the product out. We've been knee deep in technology and product for the last 12 months. In order to make the front end look and feel like point and click, like using Spotify, it means we need to do a lot of heavy lifting behind the scenes. And so there's been a really heavy focus on engineering, really getting the platform and the technology right. And now we're focused on getting the product out there, adding more DePINs, working towards our TGE. So there's a lot that we're still in the first innings, as they say. And from my perspective, I think DePIN has a huge way to go. And for me, and I guess part of the genesis of Hivello, and I know the audience that you're mainly speaking to is a Web3 audience, and there's about 100 million of us around the world, Web3 users. But I think that the big opportunity is how do we bring in the billion plus people in the Web2 space that know how to use Amazon and Netflix, but don't necessarily know or want to know about private keys and all these sort of nuances and acronyms that we come up with in this sort of technically focused world. And I think bringing them on board, I actually think DePIN is going to be the major catalyst to bring in the next 100, 200 million people into crypto.
Amazing. And so if the non-crypto natives, the Web2 people of this world, are a key customer segment, then what's the onboarding strategy there to get them to find out about Hivello and get them interested?
Yeah, so we've got a number of key segments that we're going after. But maybe from a product perspective, the way that we've architected the product is you don't need to have any crypto experience. And we will allow customers, when they earn DePIN tokens, to either withdraw the native DePIN tokens that they're mining, convert it into stablecoin and just get paid in USDT or USDC, or if they're not interested in crypto at all, just basically get paid directly into their fiat account. And so the way that we've built our product ultimately allows a non-crypto person to install it onto their computer, share their resources, and just get paid directly into their bank account. So they never need to touch crypto. And we have a number of go-to-market strategies specifically targeting that audience. Because once again, I think, taking a step back, sometimes from a crypto perspective, we tend to use a lot of jargon. B, we think that everyone understands about private keys and the different chains and this, that, and the other. And for most people out there, they either don't know or they don't care. They just want, I've got a problem. I need more money. What's the solution? I can install Hivello and just earn some extra cash without having to understand all of those nuances around technology.
100%. I mean, at Future Networks here, most of the people that we work with, if, for example, on the Hive Mapper side of things, we're giving a dash cam to a professional taxi driver, chances are he hasn't touched crypto before. And it's quite a big learning curve. So, okay, this is your Phantom wallet. This is what the Solana blockchain does. And it's a little bit of a leap. So actually extracting that completely and having off-ramps direct to the bank account, I think is super smart. And obviously your past project, you said you were part of an off-ramping crypto project. I'm sure that's quite a energy there as well.
Yeah, exactly. And
awesome.
and how and just to go back even sort of 20 or 30 years, and I know we're talking about DePIN and decentralization and everything else, but this whole concept actually originated over 30 years ago. There was a project by NASA called SETI, SETI. And so the way it worked was, NASA, they had a whole bunch of data coming in from all of their telescopes around the world, as well as those, in the atmosphere, generating all of this data, all of this content, looking out, trying to find other planets. And they simply didn't have the internal computing power to be able to process all of this data. And so you could, as an individual, you could download SETI onto your computer, and then every night it would download a little bit of data, it would process all of that data, and then in the morning it would upload it back to NASA. And so that was really one of the first real life applications of decentralization. Now, back then there was no blockchain or crypto. You didn't get paid. I ran a node, I didn't get paid, or the millions of people that were running it didn't get paid. However, there was a little prize. If you found something out there, whether it was a star or a planet, you could actually be involved in naming that planet. They could name it after you. So Amazing. There was kind of like a bit of a carrot there in regards to it. And, for me, I was only a teenager at that point when I was using SETI, and I just thought, that is just such a great idea. And as kind of the whole DePIN ecosystem evolved, I think back, to those 30 years or 35 years, just thinking, that's kind of where it all started, with this particular NASA application.
Amazing. Obviously people talk about DePIN and the history, the origins. They often mention Bitcoin and then it goes to Helium. I've never heard NASA mentioned before. So that's super interesting. I guess when SETI token, maybe you'll get a retrospective airdrop if they decide to go the DePIN route one day. But no, that's really interesting. And so we've looked at the past of it, maybe looking forwards to the future. If you could run us through, what are the key goals that you guys are working towards, saying through 2025, and what are the key metrics that you're going to be marking success by?
The key measurement for us is ultimately the number of people using Hivello. Looking forward over the next 3 years, I'm expecting many millions of people utilizing our product, and for me that's all. Obviously, we as an organization, the way that we make money is that we take a percentage of all the DePINs that are basically being mined. So we are absolutely aligned with our customers. The app's free, so there's no risk in terms of using it. And if we're able to, as an organization, pay out tens of millions of dollars to people around the world, that ultimately, is great from a business perspective, but it's also great from a personal perspective, because it just means that we have put more money and crypto in the hands of millions of people around the world. And I think that's a really, really good way of obviously doing good out there. And just to give you, I guess, another example and channel that we're working on, it's the charity channel. And you might ask, well, how does that fit together? So we know, and we've been approached, and we're actually in discussions with a number of charities. We know that, obviously with the cost of living crisis, their revenues at charities, or the donations are down because people have less money in their pocket. And so part of a couple of the conversations we're having is, could we create a charity version of Hivello? So a specific charity, let's just call it Save the Children, just to pick a charity brand out there, could email, message out all of their stakeholders and say, download the Save the Children version of Hivello people install it onto their computer, they share their resources, and rather than the money going into their pocket, it actually gets donated to charity. So it's like passive giving. And so we're working on these deals. It's obviously going to take a lot longer to do that deal than compared to a Web3 deal, because once again, it's trying to educating the taxi driver around what's a phantom wallet and what's cryptocurrency. It's also educating the charities around this as well. But for me, if you're asking me, what does success look like? If we could be donating millions and millions of dollars, in this fashion to charities by leveraging all of these computers around the world, once again, that would be fantastic, both from a business perspective as well as a personal perspective.
Yeah, 100%. That's a really interesting concept. Being able to donate to charity via this, I think that's awesome as well. And so I guess it's user acquisition. The amount of active users is going to be the main metric. And then, do you see tapping into existing hardware like Helium? So within the actual DePIN world already, do you see that as a big force towards your growth next year as well?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, people that have got a spare desktop and laptop, because it's super simple. It's really point and click, download, install, and you're running. The hardware aspect is really, it's a little bit more tricky. You need to have a little bit of technical knowledge just to be able to do it on a Helium device, because you need to swap out an SD card. So it's a touch more complicated. And then obviously the Web 2 route, which has got nothing to do with crypto, like the charity example that I was giving. So in that perspective, getting access, and actually I should also say, working with projects, DePIN projects themselves. We're integrating DePIN projects. We actually don't need the permission of any DePIN to integrate, because we obviously live in a permissionless environment. But every single DePIN that we've spoken to loves this as a concept. They see it as a way of getting access to more customers. And every single one of them has said, can we actually help market you and just basically get you out there? Because partly what Hivello is doing is actually solving a problem for a lot of DePIN projects, because a lot of them require a low to medium level of technical knowledge. And if you take an Akash of the world, you need to be a Kubernetes expert just to be able to run Akash, which is one of the leading GPU mining platforms out there that is used to train AI models. So a lot of the DePINs are saying, actually, you're going to help us, get more customers. You're going to save us time from a technical support perspective, because we don't need to support people, because your platform is effectively wrapping Web3 DePINs in a Web 2.0 environment. And we're going to actually help market and promote you out to our user base. So it's actually been much more open arms from the DePINs than I originally anticipated. But once again, it's all about co-opetition in the space. People realize that the pie is big enough for all of us in the space. Let's just grow it together, because we're not going to be really cannibalizing ourselves. We're just going to be focused on cannibalizing the traditional infra players, whether it's the big telcos, the big hosting companies, the Amazons and the Googles of the world. We're going to be eating their lunch. We don't have to worry about us trying to eat each other's lunch, specifically in the DePIN space.
Yeah, 100%. There are so many synergies there, as you mentioned, with the individual projects. And I think that working together to grow DePIN as a space is definitely the right approach. We're coming to the end of the time here. So I want to finish just with a question that I ask everybody who comes onto this show. So what are the differences between running a Web 2 and a Web 3 business?
On one hand, I'll take a step back and answer that, because I've started multiple companies in the last 30 or so years. And the way that I look at it is, what is a company? It's a box of contracts and it's a bunch of people. It's the hard stuff and it's the soft stuff. And it's really trying to get the right people in the right positions, and obviously the right contracts, in place. And for me, if I look at, the key success factors, I always try and surround myself with people who are smarter than me in their respective area. And that's, I sometimes, talk to a lot of entrepreneurs out there, and the bit of advice I say is go and hire people that are smarter than you in their respective area. That is the best way for you to grow your business. And for me, that has actually served, extremely well. If I look at Hivello, Andrew, Justin, and Simon. I've worked with those guys on and off over the last 25 years, and so we know each other. And we know how to work together, and we know now our strengths and weaknesses. And so once again, just being able to bring the right people who are have that knowledge, because that just means you can get to success much faster doing it that way than just trying to learn all yourself.
Mm-hmm. Okay, amazing. And then maybe 30, I know we're running out of time, 30 seconds to wrap up. Answer this however you will. Why DePIN?
Because I think DePIN is the next big opportunity in order to create a level playing field and to bring in the next billion people from Web 2 into Web 3, because it's tangible. You've got physical devices, or you've got Hivello running on people's computers that's generating them cash or tokens. And so, if you look at Banksa, the last business, it was all about connecting the fiat world with the digital asset world. And what does that mean? I'm new into crypto. I want to get into crypto. I don't start with Bitcoin or a stable coin. I start with some pounds or euro or US dollars in my pocket. So how can I take that and convert it into a Bitcoin or Ethereum or a stable coin?
Yeah.
Same analogy, same view with regards to a Hivello. So how can we get more crypto into the hands of people? And I'm all about effectively decentralization, because it's getting back to when the internet first started and you had a website, you actually hosted it on a computer at your office. That was like the genesis of the internet in the mid-90s. And then it went from decentralized to becoming centralized. And I think with DePIN and all things blockchain, it's starting to go back to its roots, and that is decentralization. And there are so many benefits, and we don't have enough time to get into the nuances and the details of that. But that's why I'm here. Power back to the people.
Dom, thank you so much for coming on today. Really eye-opening, really enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you very much, Leo. Thanks for having me.